Welcome to Shoot Me Straight. Dave Fields, Eddie Gallagher. We're back again together. It's been like
in about
4 episodes or something.
2 or 3 weeks, I think. Yeah.
I missed you big time.
We're back. 2 peas in a pod.
And today we have Sean Holland. He is, I got some of your background. Some of it we may not be able to go into super detail around because it's ongoing. But he'll give you kind of a gist of stuff. And let's get some of your background to start off with.
Okay.
Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Sure. So I was born at Fort Benning, Georgia, which is now Fort Moore.
I'm going to get you speaking to the mic.
Sorry. I was born at Fort Benning, Georgia, which is now Fort Moore.
But they, I mean to cut you off, but don't they switching the names back to what they originally were? That's what I heard.
Good to know.
Yeah, Fort Bragg is now Fort Bragg.
Okay. Well, I think personally my belief is that
I don't know if that's 100%, but
okay.
that's the word I
wow.
got. Is
wow. Well, okay. Well, good, because it's confusing. Like, where are you from?
Yeah.
I was born at that hospital. And, my family is predominantly from Illinois, but like many Americans, we came from lots of places, from the South and the North, but in my lifetime, my grandparents, close family, great grandparents, it was all in Illinois, and so I grew up in northern Illinois in a small farming town. Awesome. And then I joined the military at 17, my junior year of high school.
Was that something you always wanted to do, like as a child growing up, or?
I had a lot of dreams like everybody, and I did want to serve. It's my personal conviction that everybody should serve. But I just wanted to do my part, and then, whatever, have other plans. In my family, we have served in every conflict in the nation that we're aware of. So my mom eventually got us, she did the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution, and then while I was deployed one time, she did all the work to get the Sons of American Revolution. Oh. But we have had, but my closeness was both my grandfathers served in World War II, and they never talked about it.
Yeah.
My grandfather got upset one time, and we spent all of our summers there. It was a beautiful thing, right? Christian family, Grandma played organ at the church. Grandpa they were just heavily involved in the church in a small town America. So all the grandkids would come. It was an amazing childhood. But my grandfather got upset sometimes, and he wouldn't buy Japanese products. And there's a lot of background there. He never talked about the war until I came back one summer after I had been to, initially I was enlisted to basic training in AIT, and we were sitting there. Something had been on the news the night before, and that morning, everybody else was sleeping, and I sat down with the coffee, and my grandma was over in the kitchen, which was open, and he started talking about the war, and my grandmother literally turned because he had never talked about the war.
Was he Army, Marine?
He was in the Army.
Okay.
And then he could type, which was kind of rare back then.
Rare skill.
He ended up becoming an instructor, and then he taught machine guns, and then he fought in the Philippines, and he lost a lot of friends.
Yep.
They would go on sniper patrol. This is how that works. Today, this squad is on sniper patrol. Pretty much means somebody's most likely going to die, because you know how you find the sniper? You walk around until they shoot at you.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a lot of love for the Japanese, although the current Japanese are not to be held accountable for what happened before, right? But yeah, he didn't buy Japanese products. It was one of those backgrounds. But beyond that, there was no expectation to ever serve, and I just felt compelled to do my part.
And you went into the Army?
I did. So I joined the National Guard first. In my junior year of high school, you can do that. My parents had to sign. But I interviewed everybody. I say that because you should learn about the different branches, and I literally kept having all these recruiters over. And I laid out like pros and cons, and I decided what I was going to do. And I had wanted to go into one of the SF groups there were 2 guard units in the Army 19th and 20th Special Forces. And there was a company in Chicago, and I grew up in a small farming town about 2 hours outside of there. So I had this plan to go that way, and they moved the company. But that's fine. But yeah, I started there, and then did basic and AIT at Fort Benning. Now that we can call it that again.
I think so.
I was born there. I was born there. I did basic and AIT there, and then I went back and did my first residency there, and then I went back and did jump school there. So it's kind of my home away from home, the Martin Army Hospital, and my dad served there during Vietnam.
What year is this that you joined?
87.
Okay.
Yeah, might be a little older.
And then
Just a little bit.
And then you eventually went into SF, or?
So I went into, while at Benning, the Rangers were there. And back then, like, the internet had started, but when I jokingly say when classified was classified, right? And I kept hearing about, the book for Black Hawk Down, I don't think it was even written yet.
No, I don't. I think that was in the
mid
to late 90s.
So I was blessed. In my residency, we had a Green Beret officer who had been in Afghanistan as a Green Bay officer. He was in the residency. We had a Ranger officer who had been in Somalia. We had all these guys. We had another Green Beret who had spoke Arabic and Urdu and had been all over the Middle East. And they're all docs, students. And I was a first year, and they were all second and third years, right? And we had another doc, the year above, who went and he bucked the system. Normally the head of the residency program in D.C. will like tell you where you go, and he tried to go soft, and they were pissed. But back then the soft community was still sort of, I don't want to say taboo, but like the mainstream was definitely not for it. And I heard about the 160th, and my whole goal was to find the hardest job in medicine I could find. And then get there. Well, there was no internet, there was no this, there was no that. So I got turned down a bunch, and like there's just talk. You know how this is, like, oh yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with med school. They told me, my high school counselor laughed in my face and said, "You'll never be a doctor." Mm-hmm. Sometimes those things really push you, and she didn't know. Mm-hmm. She knew I wanted to be a doctor because of my twin. And so anyway, yeah, I heard about the 160th. I kept doing stuff with the Rangers. I kept volunteering. I volunteered to be, because I'd been in the Army. I'd been an infantryman and a 60 gunner and a 203 gunner. And I just volunteer. If they ask you, people tell you can't just have step one, get out there and just show them how bad you want to do it. So by the time I get to the opportunity to assess for the 160th, then the Rangers were offering me stuff. And they're like, "Sean, don't do that. Come to us. We go to Ranger school, and we'll use you up for 2 or 3 years. We'll probably break you, and then you can go to the 160th. I was like, wow, what a recruiting offer. I got offered a selection in the regiment.
160th.
That's pilots, right? The Black Hawk pilots.
SOAR.
Yeah.
So
you would have been So you were a medic, right? Right. So what? You weren't an 18 Delta.
No.
Not yet.
No, I never was an 18 Delta.
Never. So you were just a Army medic?
I was not a medic.
Okay.
I was a physician.
Okay. I got you. Now, all right. Now I'm picking up.
So I was your SEAL team doc.
Yeah.
The 160th. So it's called the 160th SOAR, Special Operations Aviation Regiment Airborne. Okay. Their genesis came out of Desert One when we went out to rescue Iranian hostages. Mm-hmm. And in the desert, we had this big aircraft mishap, fatality. And it's because at that time we didn't have a SOCOM.
No, none of the units communicated with each other.
They just grabbed the best of the best, but they put them together, and it's really complex.
Oh yeah,
and so Congress went through this long process to create SOCOM, and in that process they created the world's most elite aviation unit,
which is the 160th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the top tier.
And at the time they had 3 docs and a regimental doc, so 4 total in the planet. And it was awesome, like getting there. I showed up sick. There was no internet. You didn't know how to get into the complex. They didn't give you anything. It was like that was part of it. And then the fitness test and all this stuff, I remember distinctly. You know how you get like rules and they say, and then like in the ODA selection process, there's like a whiteboard and it just says, that's it. They give you these rules. I don't know if they did that with Bud's training.
No, it's a little bit different.
But for the 160th, they said, you will do this fitness test. And they said, you will not leave the track. And it was curvy linear. It wasn't like a perfect oval. And it went around the backside of some woods. And they had observers like watching. And if you tried to cut a corner or anything, well, I was sick. But I made it all the way there, and you don't get a second chance. So, I mean, I was so sick. I had like diarrhea. Didn't feel well. And I'm running, and I got to go. So they said, do not leave the track. So I literally stopped on the edge of the track, pulled my shorts down, blew. And then I ran some more, and I blew some more. And I ended up taking, like, my socks off and wiped my ass.
You got to do what you got to do.
You're going to get me, man. You're going to get the whole thing when I'm
Yeah.
And the guy at the end, and I finish, you know, and he just nods at me and he goes, that's your, like, I don't want to acknowledge him. I just, because then there's more and more and more and more, and you don't know what any of it is. Your job is to just give your best. So it's a really great part. You should we got to get some more Night Stalkers in here. So that's the Night Stalkers. NSDQ.
Yeah.
Their motto is Night Stalkers don't quit. You do not, that is our pledge to the ground warfighter. We will not quit. We will not leave you. In fact, that's what happened on Roberts Ridge. They had to forbid them from taking more aircraft in.
Yeah. So you made it through that selection?
I did.
Yeah.
And then
You get any nicknames from that, or
No, Doc. At SEER school, SEER C, you're called Butcher. All the doc, when you're a physician and you go through SEER C, your name is Butcher. Anyway, but no, we don't really do the call sign. Well, you're just Doc. It makes it simple.
Yeah. That's
Probably
what
the same for you guys.
Well, when I was with the Marines, I was a medic with the Marines, and that's
you were a medic with the Marines.
Yeah. So I went to Corps school. I was a corpsman. So your name is
I
Doc.
knew I liked you for something.
You have no other name but Doc. That's what you're called for.
Yeah.
I was there for 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, it's been a long week a couple of days since I got the interview, and a lot of other things going on in my life right now. Normally, I would have really done a deep dive. What I did do was and this is divine intervention. The first podcast I picked was that the doctor that committed her life to helping women and females.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the second one was Jared out of Alabama.
Yeah.
Oh, Jared. I was just with him 2 days ago. Yeah, we put on a course together.
Well, and then probably why. Anyway,
yeah,
we'll get into that.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get into that.
We're leading up to it.
all right.
Yeah. So now we're before 9/11. It's a year, and everything, like literally, the joke is you can't talk about it, right? Like you couldn't. We had pagers back then. If nobody knows what they are, they're real. And we carried all these pagers. And you had the national mission for the regiment. There's some national missions. Like 24/7, if badness happens, you are the world's. You're on call.
You're on standby.
You have to rotate that.
Yeah.
And you train for these things, and then you pass the baton, and it never stops. And the public doesn't know that. Like, there's some really serious national missions where if you're called, like here's a hypothetical. Imagine if we found a dirty bomb at a stadium.
Yeah.
You're going to pick up that dirty bomb, and you're going to fly as far as you can. How it blows up.
Yeah.
Because you want to get it away from people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the national mission included hostage rescue nationally, right? So for those Tier 1 assets. And then all these other things. So we trained we're there for all SOF assets, East Coast, West Coast SEALs, all the SEAL teams, all the Rangers globally, and then all the training requirements, because you have to train, right? So we would literally fly. I never got to do this because 9/11 kicked off, but we would have to fly from Savannah to the West Coast and then support those guys in their mission profiles over every terrain, over water, over everything, right? And then, so I'm in 3rd Battalion in Savannah, Georgia. And we did, right here with some Herbert teams, we would do no-fly zone support during the, after the Gulf War. I don't have a picture of Iraq here, but part of it. But we had just pretend this is Iraq. We had a no-fly zone where our aircraft would fly around, and if they did bad stuff like bomb Kurds, our aircraft would retaliate. But then we had to be able to go rescue them. So there was always training going around that, right? So my first summer there, we were in Jordan, and we trained with International Middle Eastern Coalition Special Ops, and we were there to be also there for no fly. We did jumps, crazy stories, like crazy fun stories, right? And then we kept getting all these like hints, and we thought it was always a joke because we were constantly pulling jokes on each other. I mean, you know the deal, right? Come on. And our intel guy kept saying, yeah, we're going to go film a movie. We're like, yeah, right. We can't even take pictures of the aircraft. Like, whatever. And back then in the news, there would be reports of government black helicopters with the probes on the front that would go train in cities around America. Well, those were real reports, but it's kind of hard to hide Chinooks in a city. And they would do training profiles in those cities. And then people would complain and like the noise and we're under attack, you know, like all kinds of silliness. Well, you couldn't take pictures of the aircraft or anything. And then we kept thinking it was a joke. And then we got the no kidding orders. You're going to go to Morocco and film Black Hawk Down. That's where we filmed Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
With Ridley Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer.
So Hollywood could...
It was the first time ever.
Okay.
It would be a stupid movie if you called it Black Hawk Down and you flew Hueys.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get Black Hawks then. And you couldn't get Black Hawks with probes. So the Department of Defense, SOCOM, Hollywood, they did it right. They used the ground force commander retired and the retired air commander were full-time consultants. And they kept the TTPs out. But there were pilots in that movie basically being themselves, flying.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
So I was there 60 days. So then it's just like this surreal thing because you went from, we still can talk about things, but now we're talking about that. And then that ended, that was the summer before 9/11. So we came back from that, and then boom, 9/11 hits.
Yeah. Where were you on 9/11? Do you remember that morning very vividly?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was in clinic, and we would PT before clinic, and then we would show up in our nasties, and then we would run sick call in clinic, and then the news popped. And I love aviation. I wanted to be a pilot. And so when I was in college, I also laid out other options. And my hometown, there's the hometown airport's named after an American hero. He was one of our small town docs, his dad. And Tom Quartz was a dual Air Force pilot doctor, and he died during the Gulf War. He was shot down.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be a pilot. Like everything else, right? Let's not forget firemen and baseball and all that stuff. But I was like dead set on it, and I had 20/20 vision. Well, that wasn't good enough. So I was in Air Force ROTC as an elective while I was in Army National Guard, and the instructors didn't know at University of Illinois. And then summer camp came, and they're like, "You got to go here." I'm like, "I can't." And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, number one, you told me I couldn't fly, and number two, I have orders to go for the National Guard, and this is an elective for me." And the instructors had no idea it was an elective. So if you want to do something out there, when you're told no, respectfully, just keep at it. It took me 15 years
Find
later.
another route to accomplish
15
your
years
goal.
later, I got to go through flight training at NS Pensacola as an Army guy.
Oh, wow.
All right, so 9/11 that morning, we're there. Aircraft hit, and I was just like, yeah, that's not. The first one, I'm like, that's not an accident.
No.
We closed clinic. We went to the headquarters. We had a briefing starting anyway because we were going to do another rotation. And then, of course, now the other one hit. So now the intel guy in the S3 is pulling the commander out. And, I mean, we knew that was it. Like, this is not, aircraft don't do that.
Yeah.
So we knew that's what we did.
And where were you?
Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia. Got you.
With 3160. The doc, the physician position is considered a special staff. And I think for SEAL docs, they really get into it. Not most docs in the Army are not at the tip of the spear, and they don't do ops. And most of them are back at like the Role 2 and Role 3 hospitals, or Role 1, Role 2, Role 3, like the Kandahar, the Navy.
It's like the physician assistants
at the battalion level, and then hospitals are all staffed by medical units.
Yeah.
So the Role 2 and the Role 3s they're not units. They're not assigned to an operational unit. They're assigned to a hospital unit that covers hospital missions.
Is that when like you have a base somewhere, y'all establish a hospital and they stay there?
The bigger bases.
Okay.
Yeah. The FOBs, no. The FOBs, that's your either aid station, just the corpsman, just the medic.
Yeah.
And then the step above that is what's called a Role 1 BAS, Battalion Aid Station. I think they use the same for Marines, right?
Yeah, BAS.
And then there's a PA or doc there, and they work for the unit. They're part of the unit. And then you go to the Role 2, which is, the idea is you would move, this is Korean War, Vietnam world, and like doctrine. Mm-hmm. By the way, it's all changing now. I mean, the assignments are the same, but the future fight, and I spend a lot of time in this space, we will not be able to have, MASH, the TV show, like that. That will not happen if we get in a global conflict, because they will be targeted. So right now it's called prolonged field care, and we could have a whole other podcast on prolonged field care, so I better stop. But that is, and the soft world has been telling people this forever. And that's what the soft world did. Like, you didn't have the luxury of these things. I was in Kandahar the first time when there was nothing.
Yeah.
Like nothing. When the triple nickel literally spray painted 555 like they were like my dog marking a tree. The triple nickel was 5th Special Forces. It was one of the 2 ODAs that did the 12 Strong, the movie. Mm-hmm. They were the horse.
The horse soldiers.
Teams. They came down. One of those guys, we're going to get him here. He's going to hate me, but it's game on, Scotty. He's local. He was one of those.
Yeah, I've seen them. They've came and spoke at a couple events.
Did Scott come?
They were all there at one.
The medic? No kidding.
The Green Beret Foundation event, I think.
Okay, cool. He was in. He ended up being the PA at 7th Group with me.
Yeah, I think he was there.
He was a crusty. I love it. I mean, he's so classic crusty guy, right? He was a team sergeant. He was a 18 Delta medic. It's really hard for the medics normally it's one of the Bravos or somebody, that becomes the team sergeant for a team. And then after he did that, then he was an instructor at SOCM. Mm-hmm. And then he became a PA. And then the Army makes you go do penance with Big Army. So he was with a bunch of artillerymen out in, I think that was an Afghan rotation. And after you do your penance, you get to come back to SOF. So then he shows up at 7th Group, and then I showed up, and we were there together. He was awesome. I'll tell you his name later. Maybe we can hunt him down.
Yeah.
When you say, anyway. I understand probably about 50% of what
you're talking about, but I interrupt for your audience, interrupt, man. And
I would be interrupting constantly.
Yeah, the amount of acronyms, it's like, you gotta.
I told on the drive over, I told myself
it's all right.
It's embedded in us. It's we're institutionalized.
We speak 3 languages.
Yeah.
He speaks medical, which is a total language you can abbreviate the hell out of. Mm-hmm. Sorry, audience. And then military, and then SOF. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, pretty much. Medical, SOF. The military thing. I'm
and then the military's
or Navy, big Navy. I don't.
I'll try to not do that, but I hear you. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
So when you say 7th Group, I'm glad I asked you about ODA earlier.
Yeah, Operational Detachment Alpha.
Yeah.
That's a Green Beret team, a 12-man team.
Yep.
That can break down into 6 if needed.
Yep.
And their purpose is to train in a whole bunch of things, but to train indigenous forces. They're
by, with, and through.
Yeah. Well, it's also De Oppressa Libre is to free the oppressed.
Okay.
Their formation during World War II, and they kind of modeled after the SAS model, but their mission is to train up and live with indigenous forces and empower them to basically, and then they can train up. They do a lot of things too. They direct action, but really their Have you had Green Berets on?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we had-
it's in 7th group. When you say 7th group, what do you mean by that?
7 special forces.
Okay.
And the groups are all aligned regionally, so they learn intensive language and cultural,
Okay.
so they can embed with those areas.
And there's a lot of 7th group around here.
Seventh group
group
is here.
is
It's
at
stationed
Eglin.
here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Got
came
it.
here. There's more Army at Eglin than Air Force
Yeah.
after
This
7th
is,
group got there. Sorry, I love you, Air Force.
this is a Army Air Force town.
We
for
needed
sure.
a cool place. Like the Army had, like, I love Fort Hood, not really. Oh, did they Cavazos, Fort Hood, they changed the name. Middle of Texas, above Austin, not Austin fun. Like dry, like there's like somehow you keep driving and then it's just dry and
Yeah.
this color everywhere.
Yeah.
Fort Hood's a nice place. But I decided afterwards, like the Army needed a great spot.
Yeah.
So hence Eglin. The real reason they moved them here, they had too much asset at Bragg. Think about that strategically. You got to spread your stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then training is another problem. But really, just every American needs to put on their strategic think hat. We have massive challenges coming.
For sure. Well, did you get, so would you get assigned to some of these special force units and you would,
You have to volunteer
as a doctor?
to be on airborne status and then get through that. You have to volunteer to do it, but then be selected, be chosen.
Okay.
And then you're there, and then after you're there, it's kind of like the SEAL thing. Just because you show up, it's not like a freebie.
Yeah.
Now,
You got to earn your place.
yeah. Now for the docs at that point. So the irony was, I was the senior chief medical officer at Fort Rucker. Not that the name's going to be back, up in Alabama,
Okay.
the largest helicopter training site in the world.
Wow.
But geographically, they covered the medical retirements and financial assets for Army people down here. So I was well aware of the Rangers and their needs and well aware of 7th Group. And technically speaking, I was the senior doc. Now, they did their own thing down here, but like when it came to medical retirements and things that went up that chain, ultimately, I was involved in that, And so I knew the doc down here. And I called, his name was John Lay. He's a fabulous human being, he and his wife. And he was a longtime 7th Group doc. Legacy guy, iconic. And he was also a Green Beret before that. I think they're still retired around here. And I called John, and I'm like, hey, your 3rd Battalion slot's open up. I'd like to do it. And he's like, Sean, that's a young man's job. And I'm like, John, perhaps. I said, look at it this way. You don't have to, when I show up, you don't have to send me to flight surgeon school. You don't have to send me to CRC. You don't have to send me boom, boom, boom. Like, you lose your doc for up to a year and a half when you get them. You can plug and play me now. And I've had all these deployments, and I know a lot about this medical game and how to get guys through their needs up here. And I can be a mentor to those guys. And like, what, you don't think I can do the job? He laughed. And he's like, well, you don't want to be the group doc, right? The group docs are typically Green Berets. They've been in 18 series guy, usually a medic. Then they go to med school. Then they want to come back to group. And he had already not promised, but another man had earned that slot. And I was like, I don't want that. I'd been, you're going to laugh, right? Like, well, did you ever leave the teams?
Did I leave them?
I mean, like, the Navy doesn't do this. Like, for docs, you got to stay in SOF the whole time, right?
Well, it's different in the teams because I was a corpsman already. So when I go to a SEAL team, before I check in there, I went to 18 Delta. That is your qualification. Yeah, I went to SOCM. Yeah. That's your qualification. So, no, you don't leave the team because...
But then after that, once you're on, like, you get to stay.
You go to, yeah.
As a doc, medically, there's a lot of other physician jobs out there.
Yeah.
And SOCM is Special Ops Combat Medic course for the people listening.
Yeah.
At Fort Bragg. All of SOCOM goes there. Well, not all.
Teams don't go in there anymore.
Oh, okay, I'm a dinosaur. They used to all go there. It used to be all the Green Berets, the Rangers, the 160th, and the SEAL medics all went. It was like he's going to laugh, but it was like a meat-eating medical alpha-ness, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then to be honor grad is like the meat eaters among the meat eaters. So our medics at 3rd Battalion, the senior doc was a SOCM grad. The next guy was a SOCM grad, and the next guy below him was a SOCM grad. When I showed up, we started getting a couple of new guys in, and it was like, no pressure. Don't come home. You're not the honor grad. It's kind of an and actually the next guy, he did great, but he wasn't the honor grad.
How many deployments did you do total?
I always laugh at this. So my ORB, I think it says 6, but you know the deal. I did 5 very long ones and 1 short one. Okay. And when I say long, I mean one was 15 months.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Usually aren't they 6 months?
No, the system was different.
Yeah, I mean, it's different for each unit. Like the Army deploys guys for like a year sometimes, and that to me is like, that's sort of dumb. I
didn't have a choice.
No, they don't have a choice in doing it.
The Department of Defense didn't have a choice.
Yeah, but it's like, to me, what I saw, so ours are 6-7 months. We went to 11 months for a short stint. What they found is dudes were coming back and like, I'm getting out. Like, this is stupid. You can't keep me away from my family for that long. You can't put me in like harm's way for that long. So we went back down to 6 months. Tier 1 level units are usually 4 months. But I would run into Army guys over there. You know, we work with conventional units and stuff. And yeah, their deployments are like a year long.
So it's 6 months. Or you like kind of? I mean, by the end of your deployments, were you like?
They did a study. Usually around the 3.5 month mark is where complacency will start setting in, especially if you are running and gunning and keeping busy. You'll get burned out. But yeah, I mean, 6 months is usually it's the magic number that they've been using.
So SOCOM was different than the big Department of Defense. This is the whole big DOD. This is SOCOM units. This is the aviation unit. This, just make it up, right? I'm not making it up, but SEAL teams, Rangers, Green Berets, aviation for all of these.
You probably got to
aviation for all of those. Sorry, buddy. Has to support that. It can't go away. So we were evolving and learning as a Department of Defense of what is the right sweet spot. But at the bigger scale, the reason I said that the Army couldn't do that, they couldn't. The numbers didn't work. And I want to share this with the audience. When my grandparents and some people's great-grandparents, when they went to World War II, it said for the duration on your orders.
Oh, yeah.
And the next fight, let's set the expectation. There will be no rotations.
Jeez.
Yeah.
We had an 8 million man army in World War II. Now, the size of China, do the math. So expectation management. It's like on the medical side, the moment you start bleeding, you should never bleed. By the way, you can stop bleeding instantly, and we'll get into that maybe. It's called TXA. I'll teach you. It's in the car too. I brought it for after this. But the patch chart, he's absolutely right. Like, there's a sweet spot, and people burn out, but then when you look at the big picture of it, sometimes that's just. I mean, when we're doing peer-on-peer, near-peer competitor, and China is not near-peer anymore. They are straight-up peer. These numbers that we did, that war is a very different war.
Does China scare you more than?
Well, it doesn't scare me. It's just a reality.
Yeah.
And we have to, our nation, our schools, we are so off what we should be focused on. Readiness, like China does power outage drills. They do national blood, your patriotic give blood. They're drilling this stuff. Right now, like people, I love you Gen Xers. They're all like, oh, I got it on my pad, my this, my that. You're not going to have your cell phone's just going to be a block. It's going to be all out warfare. And if you like Asian history with warfare, it's going to not be fair. They're going to hit us hard. I went to an event last year, and this stuff is no more classified, man. You can find all this. Went to an event last year with about 1,000 participants, all officers or other like former people. They closed the doors. No press was allowed. I'm just going to say this. They said it's not if, it's when, and our nation will get at best 1 to 2 day notice or none. So my family, like my daughter, I tried to train her now. She's 13 and doesn't care about any of this stuff. But the idea that for generations and generations, we lived off the land. Everybody, you didn't have refrigeration. You didn't have these things, and it was all okay. And that's still okay. So with the project, the Warhorse Project, we also kind of, how deep in the rabbit hole do you want to go? We've done events where we teach sustainability, and that's why we have all the animals and part of the livestock piece.
That's cool.
But we have a lot as a nation to learn about, and we're not teaching this stuff. It's expectation management. And I think it's better to introduce the public to these concepts. And I love history. In World War II, we did that. Kids would go to junkyards and collect metal for the war effort. I mean, all these amazing things. The Scouts were doing that. Do you guys know where the Boy Scouts was founded?
Where?
No, well, where and why?
No.
It was in England. And the British government realized that during the Industrial Revolution and people were moving to cities, that their young men were losing fieldcraft skills. Because their young men would then have to sometimes be forced into military service or be in the military. So they created the Boy Scouts to develop and keep alive simple tradecraft. Kind of cool.
I probably should know that history since I was a Boy Scout.
Yeah. Well, what ranking did you get in Boy Scouts?
I made it. Dude,
Were you
I forget.
Eagle? Is that the best?
No, my dad was an Eagle Scout, which is why he was wanted me to go, but I ended up getting kicked out at some point.
Of course you did.
Yeah, for fighting.
Awesome. I mean,
it was it was what it was.
Yeah,
I was in it for a while. I mean, I did it for probably 6-7 years.
So they have a
Learn how to tie your
horsemanship
knots.
badge in the Scouts, and we did that. I'm just gonna go there. So this in December for our region over in Santa Rosa County. One of the Eagle Scouts did his project on the Warhorse Project, and he built. We didn't have a formal wooden round pen where you can take horses and introduce them to horsemanship. Yeah. I don't like to use the term breaking. And that was his project, and that was his Eagle Scout project. We've had 2 Eagle Scout projects out there now, but he got the award of the year for doing that.
How about that?
And then I was certified to check off and put Scouts through the horsemanship badge.
Yeah.
And then when I got arrested, one of the first letters I got was saying I could no longer be teaching Scouts.
So, all right. So we fast forwarded a little bit to
meat potatoes. I did a bunch of deployments.
So I mean, when did you get out?
2018.
2018. All right. So you pretty much spent your entire career.
I decided to get out. I would have stayed. I was single dad in it. I've been single dad in it for a long time. But I was the chief medical officer of the hospital. I came back to an aeromedical research lab at Fort Rucker. And then there's a thing called profiling in the military, and the doctors learn like the rules for profiling, the medical rules. And they were forcing us to take classes on how to write prescriptions for changing sex and all these other things, and I'm like, that's it. Like, that is not. I will not do this.
So so they were making you guys take classes,
training.
Trained up on. Hey, this is
the meds. Like, these are not meds that are normal meds you write.
No, they're like hormonal.
And I'm like, and so, and it was against my beliefs and my faith, and I'm like, no, and I believe it's wrong, and it has nothing to do with national defense.
No, it has everything to do with common sense.
Yes, and I love comments. I'm actually running for office on common sense, assuming I'm not in prison.
Oh yeah, those are two two conflicting things going on.
So I mean, our president. By the way, if I go to prison and you guys need to bail me out, you need to,
Get out of jail free card.
It's what is it, $1 million? Yeah. I don't know.
Oh my Lord.
So
by the way, if I say start counting because we can just make fun of each other. No we would do that in briefings. We would ridicule people.
Oh, well, yeah, we had the coffee can in the back, and somebody would throw change in it every time you said or to break you with that.
It's not hazing if it's fun.
Or if you're learning from it.
Right.
So you got out in 2019.
18,
sorry.
And then I was so frustrated during that process with the VA system of like getting your VA. I was mind-blowing. I've been writing retirement physicals my whole career. And basically the military doctors do this amazing, hopefully, summary of all your stuff as a retirement physical. Nothing matters. And you go to the VA and it's so broken. So I was like, oh, okay. So keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. I became a VA disability doc so I could understand the system. That's how complex it was. And I was doing that in Pensacola. And then I got on the Veterans Memorial Park board. And then I kept getting in by this law firm. There was this case that was brewing called this earplug case. And when I went up to Rucker to the Air Medical Research Lab, I thought they put me in en-route trauma care and all these other divisions. They put me in acoustics. And I had done a lot of management of staff at hospitals, and I had gotten rid of some folks from the Department of Defense who needed opportunities to take their services elsewhere. And I'd done it with the union too, which is hard. And the commanders up there knew it, and they're like, we have a challenge in acoustics. And I was like, if that's where you need me, I'll go. I'm thinking, what a waste of all these 2 decades of warfare and knowledge and experience and both sides of it. I served in a cavalry unit in Iraq in 07, 09 during the surge. So I was the brigade surgeon for that aviation unit from Baghdad to Basra. And all the attack, heavy lift Chinooks, medium lift Blackhawks. People didn't drive then. We drove resupply convoys, but like moving A to B was out of the picture. So everything was by aviation, the military dogs, everything. So we did all the medical movements. We were responsible for medevac. That was my job, like the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And that was 15 months.
And so the acoustics position, I mean, it's just
At
not
first I
capitalizing.
thought, well, no, it's not our plan, guys, right? Like we can start laughing about this, right? It's not our plan. So I got put in acoustics, and then it was an amazing experience, and headsets and all of it. And earplugs was just like a part of it, but it wasn't like, it was an amazing experience to learn about this whole space. I ended up getting a rating in acquisitions and contracts for the Department of Defense. I did all these other things. And while I was there, I was by day doing this job, and at lunchtime and at nights, I had started doing this equine work to help people. And then I moved 3 horses up to the stables there and would tell people, don't take your meds and come on out. And I was doing equine work with them for their PTSD.
Were you getting better results?
Yeah, that's why I do it. And it had been my journey, and healing myself is a hard process, and it's never really full. But mid-career. So here's the deal: when you're in the military, first of all, nobody should be on hardly any meds, nothing. When I left Andrews Institute, they put me on OxyContin. I quit that shit a day and a half after I got out of surgery. I was pissed they put me on it. Pain is life. It's okay. I've had, I think, 16 surgeries now. Never once. The longest I ever took pain meds was 3 days. Doesn't mean there's not pain. It means it's a choice. It's willpower. Come on, like going through buds?
Yeah,
that's willpower, man.
Yeah, you're not allowed pain meds and buds.
But like the whole thing is willpower. Like you have to want it. So as human beings, we didn't. Now the opioids come out of the Asian culture and Afghan culture, but opium. But humans throughout history, we didn't have opium in North America, and for thousands of years, our native tribes didn't do that. You don't need to do that. But it's a mindset and a cultural mindset that like there will be pain and you work through that process. And that's just not all meds. Like we are the most heavily prescribed country in the planet.
Yeah.
And it's a broken wheel, my friends. There's a place for meds. Like if you get a complex, I almost died 2 years ago from a nick on my finger, like 2 millimeters. And then it spread up my hand.
Would it get infected?
It went up the tendon sheath. And I had seen that happen to patients before, and I knew the seriousness. And I'm always working out and doing all this farm stuff. And I was like, oh, snap. And I drove into Gulf Breeze Hospital, and it had swollen more and more. And they did surgery immediately. And my hand was open from here to here, and they put me on IV antibiotics, and it saved my life. I also went into septic shock. And I had to tell them I was going into septic shock. They kept checking my blood pressure. And I said, and I used to be a combatives instructor for Marine Corps lines in the Army. And I knew what was coming, and I was like, yeah, that's my blood pressure dropping. And I buzzed the nurse, and I'm like, yeah, can you come in? Really need you to check my blood pressure. And it was 60/40. And she's like, huh. She's like checking the machine. She goes, it must be wrong. I'm like, it's not wrong, just plain as day, because when you get in the zone, you got to get in the zone. And she goes, let me check that around. I'm like, call your supervisor. And I'm like, and, your vision. And then I'm like, call the code. And she's like, what do you mean the code? I'm like, it's septic shock. And then it was like, the beggar to call septic shock. But I almost died. And because of modern medicine, antibiotics, I live, right? So there's a great place for medicines. But it's reasonable to say.
It's abused.
We overprescribe everything.
Yeah, it's
wrong.
There is definitely a time and place for medication. There's even a time and place for pain meds. Like, if you're on the battlefield, you get shot,
absolutely,
whatever. And then, But the problem is we have gone to the easy button, and it's very easy to get prescribed pain meds in the military. All you have to say is, you can say, I have shoulder, back pain, whatever, the normal pain that any operator has.
Take this off now, too, because
and they'll give you your prescription of your choice. Like, here you go. And then once you're on that, it's not like, they'll tell you to take it responsibly, obviously, but they'll give you enough, and nobody's being watched. It's like on you. But a lot of guys get hooked on it because it's like it makes the job easier.
Let's talk about the hooked. Right? Anyone out there that's listening, if you get a prescription, our job as physicians and healthcare providers, nurse practitioners, PAs, anybody in the pipeline, to give you the risks and benefits, make sure you understand them so you know what they are, and then you make a decision. That should include your medication. So if you are prescribed an opioid, the human body and any mammal, including my dog and my horses, we have pain receptors. You will start developing a tolerance to that initial dose at 3 to 5 days, depending. People are a little different.
Oh, wow.
And then it starts. So on the battlefield, there's a place. Most people are not getting their legs blown off here in America. There's still a place. You break your leg. I've broken my arm multiple times, had a lot of injuries. There's a place, but it should be expectation, man. Education, we educate you, now you have knowledge, and decision points. That is what our healthcare system is supposed to be. It's supposed to tell you all these options, gives you the risks and benefits. Then we kind of talk about those, and then you say, I want this. And it's not our system. Physician, first do no harm. In fact, I think first do no harm should be every profession. Law enforcement, state's attorneys. I don't care, anything. Like if the action you're doing can harm others, we should pause. We should take a tactical pause and be able to reflect on that before we continue down that path. Mm-hmm. This is where I'm at in my life of wisdom, or call it not wisdom. When we have experiences happen, and everybody does, I have awesome friends in my life. I'm blessed. And it's also who we allow into our sphere, let's talk about church. If you go to a special ops team, you are surrounded by people just so committed, and that energy resonates. If you go to church, you're surrounded by people, and they have problems, but like their energy is really important. If you get in a horse herd, their energy, you cannot turn it off. In fact, we've been sitting here, 40 minutes or something. we've all been passing electrons around, whether we knew it or not. There's energy. And that's not our energy. That is designed.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I get worse every time I'm around Evie. I've been noticing that. Like,
picking up
my attitude,
That's what I
get
bring.
More skeptical.
I like to bring negative energy everywhere I go. Yeah.
Well, and humor is super important.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is a beautiful medicine.
That's how you get through. That is like one of the number one medications is humor. That's why people in the military have, dark humor or whatever they want to call it. It's like, well, that's how they get by with all the stuff they have to do.
And it brings a little levity to like super serious. I mean, we could all play serious. I could play colonel. I could play serious grumpy doctor. I could play serious grumpy whatever. Everybody can, right? Like parent. And there's a place for it, but humor is important. It's a great gift.
Yeah.
As long as it's not hurting someone else's feelings or whatever. Right? But like self-deprecation is like the best.
Yeah. So when did you start? What is it? The
War Horse Project.
War Horse Project.
Well, officially, I started doing it up in Defuniak. But people wouldn't come out that far, and I was doing onesies, and then so I took some horses up to Fort Rucker, and I was doing it, but it wasn't a nonprofit. And then when I moved, I actually deliberately moved to the Pensacola area because this area is the largest density of veterans by multiple counties in the country.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I've figured that. I mean, we have so many veterans.
Well, I'm a knuckle dragon, love it. I brought a hand grenade in the car. It's fake. Infantryman. I brought some toys. I wanted to dress him up. And put him in. I got the whole Afghan outfit.
A lot of people
we can make you the Lion of Peshawar.
All right.
But and then I really like to look into things. I mean, there's a part to that, right? So I looked into these metrics, and this is like ground zero where a lot of vets need help. Mm-hmm. We don't have a VA hospital here. They're shutting down the Eglin Hospital. There's a lot of need. So I came here on purpose. Or I was helped here. Maybe it's a better way to say it, right? Mm-hmm. So I brought the War Horse Project here and then officially did all the endless paperwork. And we're like the worst, best nonprofit. Everybody's a volunteer, nobody's paid, and I never ask for money. I made a promise to some people. First of all, we're not leaving here with any money, right? It's all just trappings. Mm-hmm. And I've been committing my retirement and my VA to that.
Good for you.
And then we started with nothing, and then I got to learn I got tired of paying an excavator, super expensive, so I learned how to drive it, and we help people drive it, and we built this thing. From when I've got the 40 acres originally, it didn't have an address. You drove up and it was a wall of trees and overgrowth. And so we've cleared. I'd love for you to get you guys out there.
For sure.
It may not be around for much longer, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So how long has that been going on for?
I think we officially, we got our late 19. We got the 50 designation.
C3, yeah.
We've just been quietly doing it. You don't even need that to do goodness, right?
Well, no, but
yeah. And then we've helped lots of groups. We've helped lots of vets. We've helped. We've had churches, youth groups come out. We've had visually impaired kids. We kind of keep groupings, tribes, I call them. That's a great book, by the way, called Tribe.
Yeah, Sebastian Junger. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've done. The space, my goal was to create a holistic wellness space for the community and that others could use it. So if you're about goodness, you can come out and use it.
Nice.
How many horses do you have?
The numbers changed over the years. Right now we're at, so their names, so we have Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. We have Ronan. Mm-hmm. Figured that one out. We have Big D. He's the draft Tennessee Walker mix. We have Gustavo Adolfo, which is that name. He changed warfare in Europe, but we call him Gus. We have Athena's mom, Kalua, and then we have Cayenne Peppa. She's a BLM, Bureau of Land Management Mustang. Mm-hmm. Then we have 3 donkeys. We have Ginger. She's a BLM burro. Waffles, and Moses.
Cool.
and we lost 2 horses the last couple of years. And then there were a couple that we brought in, but it was hard. We had a horse, Milky Way, Romeo, but he had been at the kill lots and he just, if he sees feeds, he kind of goes crazy because he'd been that far down the rabbit hole. We're not a rescue, but we really are. But I just didn't never call it a rescue. But about half the horses have not a nice story.
Background.
Yeah. Those horses I rename. And I really think in society, if you have kids or adults that have gone through some tragedy, offer them the opportunity to rename, because every time you call their name, there's a memory to that. Time you call a horse's name and they were beaten or whatnot, there's a memory. There's no greater example of God's grace and parallel for abuse than horses. They're incredible. And they let it go. If you learn to speak horse. We kind of get in the habit, and throughout history, at least kind of some modern history, we forced horses to do what we told them to do, but people didn't really study how they spoke. And that's called natural horsemanship. So I immersed myself in natural horsemanship for 17 years now. And I'm decent at it. I know some people who are just mind-blowing gifted at it. I'm decent at it.
There's some about horses in like vet recovery or just trauma.
Oh, there's a
recovery.
bunch of programs.
Yeah, there's a bunch of equine therapy.
And in prisons in 14 states. We could do a podcast on this.
Okay, so what about horses than any other animal? I mean,
okay,
it's not
so
dolphins.
That's a great question.
It's not.
Well, dolphins are smart.
Yeah,
but not to
so
the
let's
extent.
talk about. So hey, all these kids out there, like, why does school matter, and what can you learn from it? So you can learn from everything that you're taught, hopefully. So let's talk about mammals, okay, and animals. So we as human beings have a pretty amazing brain, okay? And for memory. The memory predominantly comes through the amygdala. And if you look in nature, I think everybody kind of has heard that like whales have this amazing memory. How do they go around the planet and circumnavigate the planet in oceans, and how do they do this? And they're very loving and they're very intelligent, right? And so are dolphins. Okay? And so are elephants. And so are horses. Dolphins are great. Kind of hard to really get everybody access to dolphins. And we use dolphins in all kinds of things in warfare too, right? Because of their intelligence. So on land, the 2 species that are by hands down the most intelligent are related to this, that are non-predators, are elephants and horses. And it's designed that way. Predators have to get it right once, and they can try 10 times. The prey animal has to get it right every time, or they're the meal. Okay? So their memory is designed to survive. And horses, I love you, Blue, are 4 times smarter than dogs. So if we're going to pick a therapy animal, now, horses have more complexities, but just specifically speaking. And the reason they're so amazingly designed is they're also a herd animal. I love my dog, and we use dogs for therapy animals. But the 3 smartest species that are in North America approved for therapy are dogs, horses, and pigs. So in Canada, they use pigs. Pigs are very tidy. But the horse lives as a pack and survives as a herd and supports each other, and we could talk on hours for this. But they're an amazing tool, and it wouldn't be that hard to have around the country places that people could go to do that, geographically located.
Yeah.
No.
You could even design HOA housings where that's embedded. In fact, in Aiken, South Carolina, they have that. It's like one of the horse capitals. They have more racetracks in Aiken and down in blanking on the town now. The real horse capital in the country is, it'll come to me in a bit. It's right before you get to Tampa, about an hour. It'll come to me. Anyway, did I answer your question on the horse thing and the brain? Oh, so the memory. So the amygdala. Blew my story. So that's how we process memory and how we encode memory through our amygdala and memory. So right now we're looking at research with ketamine, where right when you're injured on the battlefield, we give you ketamine so that we block your memory so you don't develop PTSD.
Yeah.
Oh, right now.
Yeah, because it's a disassociative.
Yep. So with horses, they can go through insane trauma, but they will continue. They learn to let it go, and they will serve you and serve you. There's a horse in the Marine Call named Sergeant Reckless from the Korean War. It's a fabulous story. You guys should dig into that and do a talk on it. Korean War. There's a statue for him in Ocala, Florida. That's the town I could think of. At the Equine World Center. And they have more racetracks and more horse stuff in that county than anywhere in the world. There's a private airfield that lands horses from like Saudi princes and stuff there. Wow. And the big statue, when you go into Ocala, into this equine center, when you come in, of everything that's there, and it's like the Versailles of horses in America. Horse stuff. Fancy. Nice. Amen to some patriotic American that put a huge statue of Sergeant Reckless there.
I like that.
All the Marine Corps history buffs will be checking you out now. All right, anyway, so horses have this incredible memory. It's for survival. If you go up a trail or you go in a path and a saber-toothed tiger jumps out every time, you want to remember that, right? So prey animals remember things because it's their survival. It's a gift from God.
Yeah. So how does that work with having them be?
Sure. So first of all, one of the challenges, we have a lot of great behavioral health care, but it's kind of designed around a certain process, and it's designed around labeling and giving a diagnosis so that it can be billed and coded for. It's telling you this. Horses don't care about any of that. But what happens with the horses is either a single horse or multiple horses. You can put them in a situation where you stress them, like I teach you to do this, and then you learn their language. And the horse either is going to seek a leader from the herd or they're going to be the leader because that's survival. So if they're alone, they're looking for leadership or they're going to get the heck out of there. But if you amp up their God-designed biological system, physiology, psychology, and then you bring it down and you communicate in their language, all of a sudden they say, maybe that predator's not as bad as I thought, because we are predators to them. Our eyes point forward, our ears point forward.
Yeah.
We are a predator to them. We used to eat them. They know this. Then you get on their back. That's how a lion kills a zebra. That's how a saber-toothed tiger killed horses. On their back. We ride on their back. That's a lot of trust. So it's all about trust and rebuilding trust. And love, about accepting that maybe you're not going to hurt me, maybe not. And we do that in designed a process for it. Just to summarize that. And then if you go to the website, it's still up for a little bit. Educate, empower, engage. Educate about this stuff. Empower, get them to do it, teach them they can do it, teach them they can let go of that trauma. So I can amp up and amp down like this. And it's a tool that you that you own. Not to go to the therapist. My goal is when we do this, you learn the basics, you can get better at it. You can get faster, just like shooting, right? Just like combatives, but you can learn the basics so that you're empowered. And then it engages, oh, my friend, you have to go out now.
Yeah.
And begin the journey of helping others. I believe that when we do that, first of all, we're less of that victim mentality that kind of humans can sometimes fall into. And that's what we're supposed to be doing, is helping others. My belief.
For sure. So almost by helping them like gaining their trust, going through that. Their
The horse part?
Yeah, you're
Well,
processing your own trauma.
Oh, that's the best part of it, right? Like you get all the crusty guys coming in, you get the crusty vets, you get whoever, you get the woman that's abused that has no reason to trust people.
Mm-hmm.
We don't take notes out there. We don't share stories. That's why you don't see a lot of stories. Some people don't want their story out. We work with veterans courts. We bring vets in. We've had quadruple amputees out there, triple amputees addicted to drugs that are in vet court. We've had single amputees. We've had everything you can imagine, wheelchairs. But this summer we had a woman come from Virginia, beaten, raped for 3 days, pistol whipped, told she he was going to kill her, and he didn't. And she never went and saw help. When her face healed enough, a dear friend of mine brought her down here, and I just kept saying, bring her out. We joked. We broke bread. We did. And my Green Beret buddy, Doc, who's like my brother from another mother, his name's Sean. He was a Green Beret during the Reagan clandestine. He was a baby Green Beret, the SF babies, kind of like SEALs do. Start them really young if they can get through. Like it's like a 5% success rate. He made that wicket. And then he broke his back on an op, and his mom's like, what do you do for a living? Because he was doing some other stuff at one point. And in that healing, he learned about this med school thing, and then the government had started a medical school for the Department of Defense called USIS. So he put his name in that. Well, we've been friends ever since. We did 2 residencies together. We've just been through a lot. And he came down after I got arrested. We could talk about that, too, if you want parts. We can go into that, and I'll cut it off if it's parts we can't. He came down to help me. And I was, which is awesome. And then I was like, well, this. And so we went and did the horse thing with her.
That's cool.
It's just because all of it's a gift, and it's just like, are we using it? Or like, are we using our gifts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah.
So what we'll get into, this is recent, you got arrested?
Yeah, now I'm going to change it up.
Yeah.
Because everybody should wear a white T-shirt in America. You were arrested, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you know why you get to wear a white T-shirt? Why you should wear a white T-shirt? We'll just have fun.
Innocent before proven guilty.
No, if you get, on a random day, arrested, you get to keep wearing your white T-shirt in jail. Underneath your orange, where you're labeled whatever that police department labels you as. And then you're treated, now that I've been there, you're not treated like an American. And you're judged.
Yeah.
Not only judged, even if if they drop the charges or you go all the way to trial and you're found not guilty, you're judged for the rest of your life. You're labeled. Because every time you get pulled over for a taillight out and they take your ID, the rest of your life it says, arrested for kidnapping and assault with a deadly weapon. There's an Air Force vet over in Navarre, 2 years of his life. He just got cleared. Guy broke into his property with his wife there. Honorable guy, living a quiet life like I was. A man struggling in his own life on drugs broke into that property and then approached the house, and it was in the middle of the night and poor lighting, and he was waving his hands with something in his hands, and that vet made the decision in Florida to protect his wife and his home, and he shot the man. He actually didn't shoot him mid-center mass, and I'm pretty sure looking at his Air Force rack, probably could have shot him there if he wanted. He hit him in an appendage, and the man ended up losing an appendage. And our state's attorney's office and our sheriff's department arrested him for attempted murder, and 2 years of his life were utterly destroyed. And I look forward to meeting him. The law firm I have at Kilpatrick and Newland served him and got him set free. But for the rest of his life, when he gets a taillight out, They take your ID, they go back and they look for warrants, and they look at your past record, and it shows those. Mm-hmm. So for the rest of his life, he will be labeled. So we need a law change. Mm-hmm. If you're found innocent, that needs to be expunged. President Trump, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, change it. If you weren't guilty, clear their record. Let them at least, they went through enough, right? You know, the only...
Well, let's get
hold my pause on that. Anyway, I don't know. I probably went off on a trail there, but like, so yeah. So
what can you share?
I can share whatever. You can ask what you want.
Okay.
And then I can.
Yeah.
Not share.
Yeah, I mean, our only concern is this: you're still under investigation.
I'm not under investigation. I'm facing 6 years in prison for kidnapping.
So you still have to go to trial?
Yeah, they haven't dropped the charges.
Okay. Yeah, and
tell you what, you can tell what you read in the paper.
I have no clue about
we just
your
got
story.
Nathan's
Nathan sent us what's going on with you.
But I'm careful. I want to be careful.
No, don't be careful. So one of y'all pull your phone up and then read it.
Yeah,
I can tell you what I got arrested for.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. I'd rather hear it from the horse's mouth. No pun intended.
I am currently pending in the United States of America, in Florida, not California. I am facing kidnapping charges, which I think the original was kidnapping. I think technically right now it's false imprisonment. And I am facing assault with a deadly weapon without the intent to kill.
All right, so why are you facing those?
Because on a random Saturday night, when we hosted a sleepover, some 7th and 8th grade girls made some really bad choices. And then they created a little white lie, and then they played that out. And
so is your daughter involved?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm not going to, some other kids. And,
yeah.
And our job is to protect children, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a very, very concerned parent, this is the part where you need to read I need one of you to pull up the news. But my child was missing. She was that'll get any parent concerned. The kids lied about her whereabouts. They knew what was going on, but they kept lying their white lie.
Mm-hmm. So did they sneak out?
No, they all didn't. I have a child who's been riding horseback since she was 3 or 4 and kind of fearless. And I trained her. You know, she did remote camping in January up the Yellow River. No tents. We built firewalls. Like this is sort of the stuff we do. So she's super resilient and hardy and tough, and she just doesn't think anything's going to happen to her. And they made some really shitty choices. So right now in America, I'll tell you, is children around this country are taking these supercomputers and they're making fake Uber and Lyft accounts and saying they're 18. And unbeknownst to parents, they're pretty smart. Our kids are smart.
Oh, I know.
They're
Believe me, I got
stuff,
3 of them.
Right? And they just don't realize the risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
well, they're too young to think of the consequences.
Yeah. And so they had apparently, some other kids earlier that year, they'd gone to like a friend's house, and then they'd jump in a car, an Uber, and then would go to somebody else's house and go swimming. Like all this kind of innocent stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, they made some bad choices, and I won't go into the bad choices, but they were kind of innocent bad choices that a lot of us have made, right? Mm-hmm. You know, doing things like, let's face it, kids have been doing silly stuff for a long time, but trying to get, whatever it was. From the 1940s and 50s on, like getting cigarettes, they can't. Well, somebody could try to do that.
Yeah.
They try to get alcohol.
They'll find a way.
Yeah. But with these, the danger level changes, the human trafficking, the risk, right? Mm-hmm. I ended up getting a master's of public health because I really know the value of effective public health programs. So I'll let him read that.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is all that I'm pulling up on it. It says a Florida Army veteran, Sean Holland, says he did nothing wrong for pulling an AR-15 on an Uber driver dropping off his daughter.
Yeah, so I can comment on that.
Yeah.
It wasn't an AR-15. Thank you, media, for not doing your job.
It's no surprise, believe me.
Thank you, media. Please please do not just read. Please do your job and actually take a moment and investigate our citizens and a story before you publish it. So, step 1, not an AR-15. I was in the Army. Step 2, not an Uber driver, a Lyft driver. Step 3, he was Uber and Lyft, but that night he was paid by a minor with another fake Lyft account. He was paid in Lyft. So 2 children have fake accounts. Step 3, what else got wrong?
To pull the gun on him.
He didn't pull a gun on him. On a dark, lonely road in front of my home with an unmarked vehicle with my child missing and gone with not responding to her phone or text, which had never happened in her life, and being told utter lies from other children. And after 911 calls, and they canceled it because it crossed the county line. I used to drive an ambulance in Iowa. I've done EMS stuff. Mutual aid. It's this thing called mutual aid, folks. In a matter of minutes, my life changed. With zero info, which is much like conflict, wartime. Wrong info, it's fast moving. And I pulled back into my driveway. This part I can share. I got a text that said, "A car's on your road. My child is absolutely missing." And that she came from the most drug-infested, human trafficking, homicide, murder area on I-10, Mobile Highway. My attorneys told me not to talk, but I'm gonna, you know what? It's game on. I love our law enforcement agencies. It's a hard job. I've got family that were in law enforcement. I respect our state's attorneys. It's a hard job. They see a lot of terrible things.
Yeah.
Everybody can slow down. Take a tactical knee. Lay the data out. You don't have to just arrest Americans. You could sit a day, a week. I think they can go up to like 3 weeks. I mean, we don't have to charge into the fray and blaze our guns just because we can. You and I know this. How is it that 18 and 19-year-old young Marines and infantrymen are expected to take the complexities of warfare and the rules of engagement, which change all the time, like these things don't change back here in the civilian world, and they're expected and required to do the right thing, and they're held to that standard. But our law enforcement and our state's attorneys are not. So the pen can be mightier than the sword, because when you brandish that pen and you label our Americans, you're labeling them for life, and maybe you're not even investigating the full story.
Mm-hmm. Did you what can you share that happened?
Yeah, so what happened is in the middle of the night after the call was canceled, and I'm getting updates from another families that I have an Android. I'm a dinosaur, right? And they had Apples. My daughter an Apple iPhone. Sorry. Seriously, I'm a dinosaur, right? And her phone, they had a thing called Snapchat. And it can show moving things. It's Blue Force Tracker in the military on the civilian side.
Yeah.
And it can text and communicate. I didn't know what Snapchat was.
That's all the kids use.
Now, I know now.
Yeah.
Oh, brother, I know now.
It's got a mapping feature.
Yeah, and so her former babysitter that used to give her riding lessons identified and sent me a screenshot where she was. I called 911 in Escambia. I live in Santa Rosa. By the way, our state's attorney's office can't seem to find the 911 call.
So what happened after?
So I pull in my driveway, and I get from that Snapchat, the phone had been on I-10, and the phone was now on my lonely, dark country road, and I look over my shoulder and I can see it. Well, I'm sorry, folks. In the military, we call that go time. I don't know if I'm ever going to see my child again. I don't know anything. And I guess we can let my attorneys listen to this and they can edit it, so maybe we can just talk and they can say yay, nay on this stuff, right?
Yeah, we can.
So this car it's a short distance on that road. So I'm going to tell you guys, and then they can just cut it. I wanted him to come, but he was in court. This is my property. Here's the road. The car's coming this way. My lighted street light is here. My driveway is here. The house sits here. It's like a double lot. And this is all woods. There's a house over there. It's kind of remote, right? and there's headlights. And my truck, I'd pulled in, and I saw it, and I looked over my shoulder, and we run cattle and horses, and we have water moccasins all over. And a friend of mine and I had been in Defuniak. We had been with the cattle walking fence lines. Mm-hmm. And I had my .22 rifle. And in fact, we had a flat that day, and that's why we got back late. That's why I didn't unload the car, because I had kids come over for a sleepover, and we're literally at the tire shop, and I'm texting my daughter, like, seriously, I sent her pictures, like, there's bales of hay sticking out, and my truck's up on a lift, and it's like, honey, I'm coming, right? Like,
yeah.
Daddy, sleepover. And she was all excited because it was her first time with 8th graders. Didn't work out so well for me.
Yeah, you live and learn.
Well,
so the car is coming this way. I look over my shoulder, I see it, and I run over here to the side of my property because I assumed they would pull down here, the light where my mailbox and my driveway is, and whatever was coming was coming. But I was very concerned that maybe this was not goodness coming. So much so that 911 told me that, like, that's a very dangerous area. They said it over. And so I ran to here so I have my camera, and I was going to try to picture the license, do a quick zoom on your camera. I get that tag, and I could identify the car in case it raced off. And maybe I could see how many people were in there. Who was in there? Is my daughter in there? Is it?
Yeah.
I'm a remote doc. My kid's missing. I'm a human being, a father, but, like, I had 2 kids and an elderly neighbor watching them. Not today, friends. This will not happen. Here's what happens in America. Whoever calls first, oh my gosh, this happened to me. They start the process of they're the victim.
So when he left, he called 911.
Yep.
Reported.
He went right up the road where he went right to the gas station I turned around at.
So he calls and
he
reports
beat me
you.
to the call.
Yeah.
And he claimed this big thing. And, oh my gosh! And guy forced me out of the car. You can read, so you can read his statement.
Yeah.
He left out a whole bunch of the story. But they showed up. I'm going to say it the way it was.
Yeah.
So in the United States of America, they already knew my background. At least they knew parts of it, because when I showed up, they called me Colonel. They called me on my phone, which is the way to do business. I was amped up on adrenaline, and I talked to these girls, and I'm like, yeah, there's more to this story. They're still lying. And I called a very close friend, and I said, I need to talk. Like, you will not believe what just happened. So my neighbor was there with these kids, and I'm like, can I go talk to somebody about this? Because I don't want to lose my cool with these kids. But man, did I want to lose my cool with these kids. And I knew I had to call their parents. I knew, like, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to call the parents. And I'm running through, like, what to do, right? But I had never played this out. Thank gosh, divine intervention, I stepped away. And then my ADT cameras go explode. I had a bunch of cameras, and I get all the messages. And then my phone starts ringing. I'm talking to my friend, and I drove over in my truck. They literally raided my home. 7, 8 cruisers, assault rifles, like the real media story. Oh, yeah. How about you just be like, get the story instead of, like, go full tilt? And I'm talking to, and then they call, and they're like, where are you? And they don't know I'm watching everything. They pointed their assault rifles at my elderly neighbor, and they're all looking at all the cars. Kind of think that. And I have a curtilage. Curtilage, folks, is when you have a gate and a driveway. My gate was closed. They had to push through my gate, and it says no trespassing. Curtilage means if your home is open, accessible to, like, a delivery person or the mailman, free game. You can come up. If you as a homeowner put fences and gates and say no, the delivery driver has to drop it at the fence. And there may be some legal complexities, and I don't want to get into it because police can kind of do things when they're all concerned. But how about you, before you jump to conclusions, you just get the story?
Well, here's the thing, and I deal with this all the time through our foundation, is these cops probably got the call from the so-called Uber driver, and depending on how he explained what happened, they're going to amp up and be like, okay, you just said a dude
pointed a gun at you.
Pointed at AR or whatever he said, because he probably didn't know. He's probably just like, hey, this guy pulled me out at gunpoint, did this and this. So in their minds, they're like, we don't know what we're dealing with. But I'm not giving excuses for what they did. I just know that because a lot of the cases that we work,
Right.
It's
So,
like, okay, man, well, we have to look at both sides here. And yes, did they overreact? Yep.
But here, you're absolutely right. So in medicine, we've changed. When you used to break your leg, we used to do a thing called traction. We quit doing that because it wasn't effective. We are arresting tens of thousands of people. Everybody has. So now I'm about common sense, which I loved it when you said that. I'm actually my life has changed so much. So I'll say it. So what do you mean by that? I lost my job. I'm losing my home. The bank foreclosed. Yesterday, I got a call from my business card. They canceled it. It's done. It's over. I'm selling everything. Whatever I can salvage, I'm shutting down the nonprofit, or unless I have to. Oh. We're there. We were there. We were there in November, and I had to change. I changed attorneys.
So is this you're doing all this, and to pay legal bills?
Everything. Pay everything. I donated my whole. Remember that part about we're not taking it with us? And I thought, well, I have this job and everything's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't have everything's gone. Everything's gone. I have no IRA. I am going to, if something doesn't budge, I started Airbnb. Over the December, I Airbnb'd my house. People rented it. Oh. And I got partly into the note, but I missed 6 months of note payment. Yeah, it's bad. So, and I've accepted it. Like, all you can do is just keep, for the folks that do combatives is, parry, and I just, this whole time I thought, why are they doing this? There's so much bigger crime out there, and they didn't get the story. And there's more to the story, and that part we'll have to probably get into later because it's not that long. I have tried as a parent to press charges. In fact, I didn't get arrested till the next night because all they wanted was my firearm. So they could package up their little arrest in a bow. Yeah, America. But we served.
You get in that much trouble for just pointing a gun at
my friend,
someone?
Let me tell you how much trouble you can get. If you point a weapon in Florida at another person, there's 2 vets right now who are charged with heinous crimes for doing what we all think is the Second Amendment, our right. Like that and the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment.
But this was on your property too, wasn't it?
Right in front, yep. This whole thing, Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, if all the states in the Union, right here in Florida, and Santa Rosa, that's one county. Mm-hmm. It's a broken system. In medicine, we no longer, if you break your leg, we don't put you in traction. That didn't work. We got a better way. Everybody has these. All the law enforcement agencies, I listened to their podcast, 3100. He said 3,100 agencies, Jared. And he said it's actually 3,081. Mm-hmm. I listen. There is no reason to just, in combat, like we know this, the first information that you get about like troops in contact is almost always wrong. It's broken, it's this, it's that. But you prepare and you get ready, but you don't have to rush into the fray. And that's what we do in our law enforcement. Well, they don't, just because somebody said that somebody brandished a weapon, let's get both sides. And you can, now in modern day society, I'm going to use a traction example. We don't do that. It doesn't work. You could actually call. So they did call me, but they didn't get the story. But they were already hell-bent on arresting me.
How come? How come they got...
that guy said I did X, Y, and Z. Then I didn't know any better. I invited them into my kitchen table. I thought for sure, you cannot take people's children in this country. My child was taken by an adult against Uber and Lyft policy, clear policy, you can't do it. I explained that to them. You know what they said to me? They were real coy about it. By the way, law enforcement is allowed to lie to you. I'm not kidding. Google it. It's all over a bunch of attorneys' websites, hundreds of them. They're allowed to do that to try to get their information. Oh. And so I thought when I was sitting there as an American citizen, as a father at my kitchen table with my daughter, by the ear, that I would be given a fair shot even to just talk about it, but they'd already made their minds up.
And the charges were for
kidnapping.
So what was a kidnapping?
Yeah. How'd they?
Because I, against his will, took him out of his car.
I gotcha.
So like,
Kidnapped
listen to
the Uber driver.
irony. I let him go. I didn't touch him. I never physically touched him. I maintained my composure. Like, it was like the training at its finest. Like ROE. I just kept thinking ROE like in safety and like if. So I was arrested for kidnapping a 230-pound, 6-foot man in front of my home with my child that had taken her to this dangerous area. And I was charged with assault with a deadly weapon without the intent to kill. What the hell is that? Lord knows if I wanted to kill him. The United States military trained me how to kill in 1988 at basic training in AIT and all the years after that. None of that was the reality. In the reality, I was doing exactly what a civil parent, father, with fear for his child missing and fear for the fact that an unknown car with unknown number of people coming from a bad area when I have other people's kids in my home, that's my duty. My duty is, your only duty as a parent, what is it?
It's to protect your kids and provide.
Yeah. Right? So, sorry.
It just seems so strange to me.
Seems like it couldn't happen.
Kidnapping.
No, it doesn't seem strange to me. This whole thing is not surprising me one bit. And this is only because we deal with it all the time through our foundation. And obviously, I have some experience in it as well. There are so many factors here. Like, there's not just one, this happened and this was wrong and these people acted this way. And it's a spider web of circumstances that you have law enforcement who are undertrained, and a lot of them, that's why they respond like that, because they haven't been.
They brought lieutenants. They brought.
Oh, I know.
They brought the cavalry. I've got a.
But
cavalry.
here's the other issue. Is now that it's gone beyond, they charged you. They're like, boom, that's it.
They've had 9 months to look at the evidence. They don't.
It's not their job to look at the evidence.
No. I'm sorry. State's attorney.
Okay. Well, here's what I'm getting to. Once it gets to the state's attorney level or the legal level, right, it's no longer about right or wrong. It's, we have a case against this guy. We are going to win.
Yep. So in medicine,
in
medicine, if he's a doctor and you're a doctor and I have something wrong and I go to him and he gives me a diagnosis and that's okay. And then like you're the specialist. So let's play this out. Like I love analogies. He's primary care. You're the specialist, orthopedics. Everybody gets broken bones. He says, you have a broken femur. And then you go and you look at it and you're like, yeah, this doesn't look like that at all. State's attorneys, instead of actually looking at it, they just run with the football.
Oh, I know.
Because here's why. They have what's called qualified immunity. And we no longer need that in this country. Why do you need qualified immunity? If you're doing your job and you're doing it right, and in the military, we cannot follow an order that is illegal, immoral, or unethical. Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of unethical and immoral to arrest a father for protecting their child in front of their home when they don't touch a person.
No,
like
and
right out of the gate, you're like,
they're in the wrong for that, especially if no harm was done. It's like everything was under control. There was no reason for them to think that you were a threat. It's like, okay, this happened. It could have literally been a simple conversation like, hey, this is what happened, and this is the actions I took because I was scared that my daughter was missing, and I was doing what I thought as a parent to protect them.
And I sat there and did all that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's at that point, yeah, I don't know why the decision was made to arrest you.
I know why.
Why?
I know why.
Why?
Because that man said I brandished a weapon at him, and he felt scared. He knows he's going to get in trouble. You can't take people's children anywhere in America. You're not supposed to be able to. It's called interference of custody. And then if you take people's children and you're doing things you shouldn't be doing, there are other things that can come from that.
Mm-hmm.
That's called contributing to the delinquency of a minor and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
And he's probably smart enough to know at that time, like, oh boy, I'm probably getting into trouble. So he cries wolf, and our broken system, this is the year 2024, 5. Like 2024 was, I want to forget 2024, my friends. Trust me, it's been a long 9 months.
Yeah.
I left out that then 2 weeks after I got out, I got cancer. I got malignant melanoma.
Oh, jeez.
That would be this. And then 5 other deep incisional biopsies. I've had a lot of healthcare stuff that's come out of this.
Well, I'm sure because it's the amount of
I finally
stress.
just got put on ulcer meds. I lost 15 pounds. I moved my child out of state. We got harassed. We got terrible things. I think I sent you a couple, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Terrible things were coming in on social media. All these keyboard warriors. You wouldn't believe.
Don't read that stuff. Don't.
I'd never been down this road.
Well, I know. Now I'm giving you advice.
Where were you? Where were you back a couple long time ago?
Yeah.
One thing, Eddie. Really, from your perspective, that super surprises me. That, I mean, being on the property,
No, it doesn't add up at all. And
why does it not surprise you, though? Is it because the Attorney General's office, they're not looking for the truth, they're just looking to win a case?
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your title is or what your job is. You're a human being, and there are all different forms of human beings working in every capacity, whether it's the state's attorney or state's attorney, all the way down to law enforcement, and they're all imperfect. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, when they make imperfect decisions, a lot of the times when they're in those positions, they will not admit that they made an imperfect decision because they're like, nope, there's no way that I can be wrong because everybody is worried about their own careers. They're not worried about you or your family or what kind of stress is happening to you. And that's what you have to realize is like these people are all worried about themselves. So it's a one big either CYA operation going on, and they're like, hey, we are going to say we did the right things. And that is where – I know this is what I say all the time, and you're not the only one that has gone through this, and this is the only rights that you have are the ones that you can afford. So you have you have to have a good lawyer that's willing to bring the fight to them, to actually point out all the inconsistencies, all the things that went wrong, and it is a long, brutal process to get to that point.
So, all right, and I'm going to tell any vet in this area. It is complex. And I've been pushed
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Pretty hard.
I can imagine.
It's been a blessing. Because I said, and like I've always felt this way. This is how I live my life. Like, it'll be provided, and the material things don't matter. I got my first new car ever, in my family. That like growing up, we had a Ford Pinto, and it was like 15 years old. But we were blessed because we were like kind of middle class, and it was a blessing. And small business. My dad he was an eye doctor, but we had a small business at home, and then they built it like in the recession, and it was horrible interest rate. And then they dropped health insurance on my twin brother, or all the kids, and my twin brother got hit by a drunk driver. And it wiped us out. And that was okay. And that's when, at the age of 14, it happened in front of our house. I didn't ever want to not know how to help. And I pledged I would become a doc. And my twin brother became a 4-time Olympian and a 4-time Paralympian. And we have a pretty good bond. Yeah, so it's pushed me to my limits. But every day, I've had wonderful friends, and this one friend just said, let's start doing a daily devotional. And every day it's like the roller coaster, right? But it's gotten better and better. And then I finally picked a church. I had kind of checked some out, and I'd moved a couple times when the hurricane hit Pensacola area, and the house we were in got hit. The whole neighborhood got crushed, and we went through like all the renovations, and then we sold, and we got closer to the horses because we're over Garcon Point Bridge, and we used to be in Gulf Breeze improper, I call it, Tiger Point. Oh, Gulf Breeze, it's a joke over there. Gulf Breeze proper and improper. Some of them take it pretty seriously. It's like me. It's like the wrong side of the tracks almost, or whatever. But the reason I moved was I was paying the toll, and then we had the 5 Mile fire. We had a fire here in Florida too, and it like burned down, and people lost their homes, and it was right there across I-10. It was a big deal. Well, I couldn't get over the bridge either any direction, and the first time that happened, the flood, I couldn't get over the bridge, and Garcon Point got crushed. The property took 18 inches, and I mean, we didn't know what was going on, right? And I couldn't get over for days and days. The bridges got knocked out, right? And then I'm like, that's not responsible. Like my parents met at 4-H, and my great-grandparents and grandparents ran a livestock yard too. And like when you're responsible for animals and children and things, like you're responsible, there's no excuses. So at a young age, like my dad, we all had chores, and listen to some of you guys' story. Well, my dad's super loving, funny guy, like always happy, jovial, but you did not mess around when it came to the animals. And one morning, we were in all the sports, like nonstop year-round sports, and we worked jobs and tasseled corn and did everything we could. Well, my job after my brother's injury was to feed the horses because it was really kind of hard for him to, and we were renting from a neighbor property. So I had to go all the way there and come back. It's 0 dark 30 before school, before swim practice, which was before school. And I'm sitting there eating grape nuts one morning after, and my dad came down. He knew the answer. And he said, Sean, do you feed the horses? And I looked at him. I said, no. I said, give me your lunch money. And he took my cereal. He said, do you have any other food on you? I said, no. He said, today when you're hungry, I want you to think about those horses. Yeah. So I never, it was like a wake up. And he said, because you have a choice and they don't. So get up earlier, do whatever it takes. Right? Like, own that.
That's a good lesson.
Yeah, I was 14. I haven't forgot it. Well, anyway, so I moved because I couldn't get to the animals. And so that's when the Warhorse Project is a block away from where we live. But the story of that is I moved schools, and my daughter kind of like lost all her friends, and then in this brand new school, she got lots of new friends, but some friends that I kind of hoped maybe she hadn't gotten.
Sure.
So when are you due to go to trial?
So they refused to offer us anything. This is what happens. Because of, I like to study systems, and because of the way, let's talk about big picture. So we have all these counties and all these municipalities with law enforcement. It's a tough job, and sometimes they don't get good training, but they're smart people, and they're good. Generally, they're all pretty good people. But their model right now is they're on shift work, and they kind of want to start a case and finish it on their shift. Well, we need to change that model. There's no reason for that. Nobody in America is getting away from you anymore. Like, you and I know we can track people. Law enforcement, it takes a really special person to get away. This is not going to happen in moderns. So let's be fair. So people all have phones. You don't have to just arrest people. You could actually slow it down. Just like medicine should slow it down. Don't make a rash diagnosis. It might be wrong. And I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. There are so many people who've been unfairly treated when we don't have to do it that way anymore. We can do this paradigm shift, and this is why I'm running for office, because we need common sense again. We have the tools. If law enforcement doesn't rush to failure in combat. Don't rush to failure. People's lives are at stake. Their families' lives. The impact. If you go to jail, if you go to prison, as a vet, you lose your VA benefits and your any kind of pension you had. Well, okay, I mean, I'm pretty sure prison's enough, but now guess who else loses that? All those kids, all those families. So we'd rather put kids in foster care than just like keep that going. That makes no sense.
Yeah, that doesn't.
It's
make
not
any
a
sense
business
to me.
model for the American public. The wasting all this time and energy, the reason that these cases take so long and the reason they don't even look at them until you get a court date is because they have so many cases.
Yeah.
But that's their business model. What if our business model was to really focus on the hardcore stuff and slow our rush to failure? But their business model is, and I used to run hospitals. Like they have these dashboards and these metrics, and you go to their websites right now. Go check it out. Check out your local state's attorney's website. I now call it, and I'm not saying this disrespectful, but I'm calling like they're putting me in war mode. This is my life. So I'm going to treat this as an unconventional warrior. They're not my enemy, but right now, I'm fighting.
You're fighting the system. Is what you're
I'm
fighting.
fighting for my life, though. Now.
Yeah, but you're fighting against a system.
But the system can change. Healthcare is changing.
The system's not going to change,
It
though.
can.
It can, but not while you're going through this.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in it now.
Yeah,
But-
you're
but
in
for
it.
the future, like this is why
No,
across this country we need veterans to put them to get into politics, get into local politics. But at the state level, the only place you change common sense laws, you're not going to change county commission. You're going to impact like stuff, but you're not. Everybody bases everything off of law, civil and criminal law. We need common sense laws. You're telling me in America right now, because they told me, you know what? This is the summary. I showed them all this stuff about the driver, and they're like, this can't be right. Like, you can't take people's kids from their homes. And they kept saying over and over, it's all recorded on body cam. He's just doing his job. I'm like, that's no one's job. I'm like, as a father, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's no one's job to take people's kids against their parents' will or knowledge. And then he said, but what you did was against the law. And I'm like, and I remember saying like over different ways, like protecting your child's against the law. So I have a solution. Like, don't come to the table without a solution. Pretty simple. How about everybody slow their roll? How about if there's a home incident in Florida? Let's start in Florida. Let's do a textbook case. Pam Bondi, hear us. Textbook case. If in Florida there's a use of a firearm in a home, okay, everything stops. No labeling. Let's get all the facts. Nobody's going anywhere. They live at their home.
Yeah.
Right? We could do this. Like this. We went to the moon. I'm an aerospace doc.
Yeah.
But we can do this. It's not hard, people. Slow it down. Take a big breath.
This is without shots fired.
Honestly, it could be both.
Well,
Why not?
I'll have an argument against that.
Okay, well then let's stick
before
with
before
that.
y'all get
Yeah.
too much into. We got about 4 minutes.
Okay,
so
all right.
we're gonna have
But
to-
here's my thing. So we can, without
Yeah.
even with shots fired.
If you get a call over the radio, shots fired, I'm going to automatically amp up and be
Okay,
like,
but-
okay,
but-
there's a gunfight going on where I'm being called to.
But then if the gunfight's over, okay, you and I.
Yeah, you just have to put yourself in the mind of the police officer.
Come,
100%.
ongoing battle. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say it's over.
Yeah.
Shots fired at robbing a bank, totally different, amped up. Incident, it's over.
Yep.
Everyone take a big breath. Let's get all the facts.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so let's can we? Those are
Yeah.
two different. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is not troops in contact. This is not officer being fired at. This is an event happened at a home. So with or without a firing of shots, we're supposed to have a Second Amendment, but we don't. I am telling you right now, there's this thing called the Second Amendment. I can tell you right out of the gate, within 1 month, families' lives ruined, veteran, doesn't matter if they're a veteran, doesn't have to be this way. We could use more common sense. How about a real judge instantly say, okay, everybody slow down before we label people for life. Let's just look at the facts and see if the Second Amendment applied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
We can. But we need a law.
For your case specifically, if people wanted to help, how could they help? If they, whatever we're able to release, and
I mean, I guess
if someone really, if
they could, I don't have a fund. Maybe I need one. I don't. I've never asked for help. I've been given and given and given.
Or just contact you
to
see
just
how they
contact
could be.
me.
Yeah, we'll put your contact information.
We're in a spot.
Yeah.
So I don't have a choice. Like everything, I'm not doing a fire sale. Everything's for sale.
Sure.
Everything.
Yeah.
So I've got the property that was my homestead. It's not paid off, but at least I don't have the note anymore, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've got the Warhorse. Maybe some other nonprofit wants to take on what we do or incorporate us.
Yeah.
There's an awesome property in Garcelle Point. And then where I live, I'm getting down to my rucksack because it's if I got to go to war with, I don't want to go to war with the state's attorney. Like why? I don't understand as a human being, as a citizen, as a scientist, physician, like all the nerdy stuff I kind of do, which we didn't get into, but which is fine. But like I just don't understand why. I understand, like I get it, what you said, but at the core of as a human being and a Christian, let's slow it down.
Yeah, you shouldn't go to jail for that.
I'll tell you this, man. It's like really frustrating hearing this story because I think there's a lot of mistakes and like you said, there's some stuff that needs to be fixed.
Wait till my attorney tell it. He knows there's mistakes.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what the attorney is there for, is to be like point out all the mistakes that everybody made up to the point to where now you're going to trial. I will connect you after this. I'll give you a contact, and I just want to make sure, and this is what we do, I want to make sure, and I'm not saying anything bad about your attorney.
Yeah.
I just, are all the correct steps being taken? Because to me, I'm just hearing you like, hey, I'm losing everything, this thing's dragging out. What I've seen in the past, and with because with the individuals that we helped, it's called churning, right? And sometimes these attorneys will let this thing go on and keep churning the bill. And I'm not saying your attorney's doing that, but I've seen it more often than not. So which is why I will get you just a good person to advise and just be like, hey, and you can tell him what's going on. And hopefully it'll help. Hopefully it won't.
I think
hopefully it does.
There's so many books. Like my car is loaded with all this stuff. I didn't know how these things work for podcasts and what you knew about me, but there's from Afghanistan. There's a book called 2 Cups of Tea, and it's what they do in that culture. Mm-hmm. And you sit down and you talk, and all across our country that does not happen at the state's attorney's level.
No. And it will never happen.
Well, hold on, but it could if we change the system.
I'm telling you, man.
I know right now it can't. I know. Bro, we can high
you are in a nasty battle right now that I don't wish upon
but 5
anybody.
years from now, 2 years from now, it could.
It could. I mean,
not in my case. I'm just saying, in order to create a more perfect union, we the people.
Yeah, well, the system needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for now, I think of just focusing on your case and getting you good.
So here's my path. This has been so pivotal to that point. I am pivoting everything, and if I my hope, prayer, and my expectation is the charges get dropped before. They're probably not because they're all in. Then we're gonna have to go to trial, but there will be a point where a judge looks at it before a real judge looks at it and goes yes, no, and then if not, we go to trial. All that timeline, all that military phase lines.
Yep.
This has moved me so much, and I'm aware of other frustrations about school systems and all these things that we could get into, and property rights and insurance and all the big picture stuff that's going on here, right in our hometowns, right? That I'm not kidding you. It won't change my case. So let's be sure people understand that. This is my pivotal. I've already got Senator Don Gates has agreed. He heard about this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know him. I don't do politics. He agreed. He called me. And he said he is going to sponsor a bill in 2026 so that this doesn't happen to more Florida families. And he left out key stuff, and now you're going to cut me off. There was a law put forth, a bill in 2019 from an Orlando family who lost their daughter through rideshare. And it was shot down by the rideshare industry and the auto insurance industry. And then in 2020, another bill, a senator, another Florida family. Lobbyists shut this down at the risk of Florida families for their own enrichment. That's when I'm like, that's it. If I'm not in prison, I can no longer sit by and just think like, oh, I can't change that.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it can't be changed. I think
for me, it's not changing.
Well,
here's if I'm not in prison,
here's what I'm getting at, dude.
Yeah.
You are taking a lot on right now.
No. I'll be, my case will be done by then.
Exactly. So here's my advice to you as someone who has gone through this roller coaster before. Okay. And I get it. When you're going through it, you're seeing all of the corruption. You're seeing all the problems, right? So immediately, especially from people from our background, we're like, this needs to be solved. Especially if you're going through it or you see one of your buddies going through it, you're like, this needs to be solved. But here's my advice to you, man. It's 5-meter target.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, you're in a fight for yourself and your family. Focus, and you can take this or leave it. Focus on that right now.
Oh, I am.
Don't expend any of your energy trying to like, well, when this is over, I'm going to fix this and this. Have that as your 15-meter, 25-meter plan, but get out of this hole that you're in.
Yeah. No, I am.
Become victorious. And then once you become victorious, then start like, I just defeated this with all of the corruption and all this crap that was thrown at me. That's when you start fighting forward, because then you can expend 100% energy on that.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And
that's my only, because I know how this is, man. And I know it's a roller coaster, and I know it's like, it sometimes seems like futile. It's like, dude, what are we fighting against here? You keep fighting, keep your faith in God, give everything to Him, like, because at the end of the day, none of us are in control.
Right. Oh my gosh.
And so
the
do
surrender.
that.
Every day is the surrender.
And
just raise your hands. Right?
Dave knows my favorite saying. It's like, this pain will serve you well someday. If you can push through all of this, become victorious, you will become that much stronger on the outside and that much more of an effective fighting force to start implementing change.
Yeah.
I just don't want you to take on too much.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it is a roller coaster, and it is great advice for everyone listening and every challenge they have in their lives. Fabulous advice. I have relearned it over and over.
And with that, I'm going to wrap us up because we're so far over. But, hey, if people want to get a hold of you, I'm going to say this. We'll leave probably an email address in the description for them to reach out to you, just so that if they're moved by it and just want to be helpful.
Yeah.
Or they have some experience or connection or something like that.
Yeah, and then, I mean, part of it, like, I have a great firm now.
Good.
They are great. They are fair. They're not doing that. They're
awesome.
Now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything. Anyway, yeah.
So,
but
and if there's stuff we have to cut from this, we may,
But maybe, they can. We'll put that email out, and then the firm as well has helped so many vets. Yeah. It took me a while to get to them, and it's just I've seen a lot of stuff legally,
for sure,
and they're just amazing.
And we'll put a link to the story and stuff like that in there too, so that people can kind of follow.
And I'll be praying for you.
Yeah,
thanks. Take all those. I will take
Eddie's
all those.
Eddie's a great person to know, and his background experience, especially with pipe hitter. Awesome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man. I know that was a roller coaster to go through, man, but I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah.
You bet. Awesome.
All right.
Out.